Debbie Field is our next speaker. For the past 14 years, Debbie Field has been the Executive Director of FoodShare Toronto, Canada's largest community-based food security organization. She came to FoodShare through her role as a founding member of the Coalition for Student Nutrition. Debbie Field.
Well, I want to start and, of course, add my voice to Peter's that this is really important and that we in the City of Toronto can do a lot about the environment. But then, of course, confirm what you just heard from Richard and Keith, which is the bad news is that we're not doing enough on these issues and the situation is getting worse. And so we are faced with a very complex need to be both optimistic and pessimistic and to try to continue the process in a world that is really not moving in this direction, to create a bit of an oasis dynamic here in the City of Toronto where we take ourselves off the grid of the dominant direction, which is very difficult. There are some examples, though, and some history on a variety of things, and probably even just the smallness of the blue box is one little example of something that was flawed from the get-go. Many of us worked on it in the early years and were very upset that we felt subsidizing the bottle industry, but it did create the infrastructure and the behavioral change of recycling, which then years later I think has made diversion and the green bin a little more possible, which allows us to maybe think about more radical options in relationship to backyard and neighborhood composting. So we are faced always, I mean, it's been very interesting listening to the last three speakers because the contradictions of all this. Every single step forward has so many contradictions around transit, around walking, and yet it is important not to get so demoralized that we can't move forward because of the world context in which these things aren't happening at all. I've just come back from Vancouver, and when you come back from Vancouver, you know, you want to kiss the ground of all of the city officials you know, who were smart enough to put the subway in, right? So we have just a different context and the streetcars. I'm here actually to talk about one section, so I will focus on it and hopefully get in time to talk a little bit about food. The Green Economic Development section has 5 sections, and it's an attempt to say that we as environmentalists, of course, understand that it's not just changing laws, but actually changing the economy that will make for a green society. And they're important recommendations. There are 5 there. One of my favorites, which there is good news on, is number 40, so I just want to draw your attention to it before I focus on food. Promote reuse and recycling of construction and renovation waste. And this is actually happening in the city in a new way, and it's maybe a hidden little secret that some of these rules that we are passing can make a huge difference at that kind of immediate level. So FoodShare's warehouse is at 200 Eastern Avenue. We're right in the middle of the West Don Lands. The West Don Lands is being taken apart, and I've actually watching people take apart buildings in a whole new way because of this, the LEED standard. So actually, instead of just demolishing buildings, we're taking them apart. And it's more expensive, but it is better for the environment. So that has been a victory on that. Our section 39 is promote local food production. And so it becomes part of one of the economic principles. But in fact, we as food activists aren't very comfortable seeing it that way. We actually think it kind of needs its own section, and maybe 3 or 4 years from now when we do this again, we can look at it in a different way. You heard that I came to FoodShare because I was involved in something called the Coalition for Student Nutrition. And Canada is one of the only countries in the world that doesn't pay any attention to how our children eat or don't eat during their life, including their time at school. So we have nobody at the federal government level who has taken any positions around kids and food. And again, in the last few years, this has gotten only worse in terms of both twin problems of hunger and childhood obesity amongst all incomes. Toronto's a leader on this, so we are one of the first cities in the world to develop a municipal strategy around kids, and We debuted in this room in 1990 and got the creation of city funding, which created the backbone of now over 400 programs. 80,000 kids a day eat at least some kind of healthy meal at schools. So the first principle that we as food people would like all the new city councillors to think about is, well, how will we all eat, and what would the city look like 4 years from now, 5 years from now, if there was more money spent on student nutrition programs. The second thing is just food production everywhere. Some of you know that the whole city of Toronto is on the best topsoil in the country, and you can grow food anywhere in the city of Toronto better than you can in the whole Isle of Newfoundland. And so though we have a little bit of language around community gardening in every ward, what we're actually interested in seeing is vibrant gardens everywhere. One of our great ideas is to actually plant the swimming pool area here, the wading pool area with plants, because you can actually grow food on top of concrete easily as well. So we want big new shifts in this. Again, the way you've heard from all the speakers and the way you'll hear from all the rest. So it's great to sign on to the environmental plan. For food, it means being allowed to grow food everywhere, on roofs, in public land, in social housing. We have social housing buildings all over the city that are literally in golf courses of grass, where we spend all kinds of money, and immigrants from cultures who would want to grow food all around them that are still not allowed to do it. And we have a huge crisis around compost. It's great that we've created the digesters, but just like some of our mega transportation solutions like the Shepherd subway, they're the wrong solutions. We should be composting at every schoolyard, at every community center, creating vibrant soil that can grow food. So it's all a first step, but we need many more. Take care.
Thank you, Debbie.